Welcome to our online video series, Reading Hope in Trying Times. Our guest today is Matthew Paul Turner. Matthew is a leading author in the Christian children's book publishing market. With his gift for rhyme blended with deliberate messages of hope and empowerment, his books, When God Made You and When God Made Light, have become bedtime favorites for families across America. His latest release is When God Made the World. And I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about all these more in a moment. Matthew's writing career started nearly 20 years ago, and he's published a book every year. Called one of Christianity's fresh voices by Publishers Weekly, Matthew's other notable works include Our Great Big American God, Churched, Coffee House Gospel, and the Christian Culture Survival Guide. When God Made You was an Evangelical Christian Publishing Association bestseller, described by recording artist Amy Grant as, "Oh, the places you'll go meets the divine." I think that's a great description. Additionally, Matthew's an accomplished photographer and journalist. He traveled all over the world documenting National Geographic's The Story of God with Morgan Freeman. For the past decade, he has also traveled extensively with World Vision to places such as the Philippines, Uganda, Bolivia, Armenia, and other locations, documenting the vast effects of poverty and the humanitarian efforts of nonprofits. His writings appeared in outlets such as the Washington Post, National Geographic, USA Today, and the Daily Beast. So we're really pleased to have Matthew with us today. Welcome, Matthew.
It's good to be here, Brian. Thank you so much for having me. It's nice.
Well, I know my daughters and their children are big fans of yours. And I know that, that Story of God with Morgan Freeman, we watched every episode of that and just loved it. So that had to be an amazing experience.
That will, I'm not sure I'll ever top that from a career standpoint. That was I had more fun and got to experience some of the coolest things that I still kind of look back and I think about that experience and I'm like, did that really happen? Did I really do that? It's kind of, but to be around somebody who is not only one of the most well-read individuals, but also one of the most well-known and well-loved individuals in the whole world. It was just, and for it to be not only be around him, but it was my job to kind of get him to sort of process his experience throughout the whole thing.
Wow.
And so, he and I developed a friendship. Are we still, it's not like we're still in touch. I'm good friends with his daughter now, but it's one of those things that during the experience, we became close and we had lots of really great conversations about faith and politics and sarcasm and acting and whatnot. And so it was a really cool experience just to do, but then to have the topic be God and be able to observe people's celebration of God from so many different perspectives. It was really eye-opening and just powerful. It was very affecting. So
it was just an amazingly wonderful series, and I can't imagine going to all those different places and talking to the people that you guys did. It was just had to be awesome.
It was beyond my I won't ever experience something quite like that ever again. So it was cool.
Well, thankfully, from a travel perspective, it wasn't scheduled for now, given the travel constraints that we're all living through.
It is crazy to look at how much life has changed and how quickly life has changed. It's funny. It's weird to be in a situation that is affecting almost everybody in the entire world. When I sit and think about it, I'm not sure there's ever been any kind of event in my lifetime or, anything that I have experienced that has been quite like this, because not only am I experiencing this, but people in Asia and people in Europe and people, and, all around the globe, there is this general knowledge about the coronavirus and how it has altered people's lives on various levels. And I find a little bit there's, on one hand, you think about the global scale of it all, but then on the other hand, I think, there's a little bit of hope to be able to do something, to go through this as a global experience is kind of, you know, the possibilities of hope and change are kind of, I don't know. There might be something affecting about life and how we do things that makes things better for all of us. Maybe in the end.
I mean, hopefully there will be some very positive outcomes out of this whole thing. But
And then to watch the story, amid all of the fear and the stories of the heartbreaking stories of people's losing family members, you have this thread of how our social distancing is affecting the environment, which has been fascinating to me. Like I don't, not that I think it's worth it on any level, but it's also it's eye-opening to what extent the environment and the carbon levels have dropped, and how much our everyday life affects the air we breathe and the things that we do. And dolphins have started showing up, in Venice again. And so like, it's that kind of stuff that just blows my mind. I mean, inside this terrible, unprecedented thing, and we are in a tragedy. There are these little stories of how our lifestyle has affected the world or the globe or the planet. And so it's been interesting to see that those storylines kind of parallel.
So maybe you could share a little bit about, how you feel that God's helped you through this and through other challenging times in your life.
Well, I mean, Brian, I cannot remember a time in my life where God wasn't an avid part of my story. And even as a child, it was even more like it was a bigger part of it, because I equated, as a child, I equated church and school, because I went to a religious school, and all the church activities as being equal to experiencing God. It was kind of how that was my way of experiencing God as a kid. And so I can't remember a time in my life where God wasn't a big part of it. And so I think probably the biggest memory was when I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, and I had to wear a brace. I wore a brace from the time I was 4 all the way to the time I was 17. It was like various, so I wore a back brace that was, kind of started right underneath my arms, that went all the way to the top of my backside. And, every 3 months I had to go into the hospital and get a new brace made because of growth and whatnot. And it was, certainly I remember, being so afraid when I was little. But ultimately, it sort of just became a part of my story. Well, then at 17, I had to have a spinal fusion to fix my spine's curve. And I remember just really getting to a place where I found peace in that. I was scared to death when I first heard, cried like a baby, and so scared, because like with dealing with the spine back then, there was this, they had just moved away from like body casts. And so like they were now using regular braces. So my life wasn't going to change all that much, except I had to wear my brace all the time again. And so certainly through that, I think I learned that, that God can that my faith in God can center me and bring me peace and kind of make me be or feel okay, even when my outside circumstances are not okay. And I think that lesson sort of is something that I've kind of embraced now, like because like, I don't love being home all the time. I don't, I like breaks of, I'm an introvert. So like, I like solitude, but I like solitude, not solitude with my 3 kids, and so like, I've had to get up in the morning and just sort of spend time centering myself and, and putting my thoughts on God and kind of bringing myself and my mind and my heart into this space of peace. And it's incredible to how quickly two things happen. You almost immediately become more empathetic to everyone else's stories. Like I become more empathetic to how this is affecting my wife and my kids. I become more empathetic to how this is affecting my parents or other people who are in my circle. And then you also become more grateful for what is in front of you. And so I think that's how God has been sort of affecting this experience of late, is that, making me, helping me find gratitude amid the story, but then also helping me sort of see it as a chance to be to find empathy for what's happening in the lives of other people, and the stories of people who are actually, closely affected by the virus, and so yeah, and definitely that helps my anxiety to some degree, because I get anxious, and it's just a part of my personality a little bit. So.
Well, the fact that you traveled so much globally too, I mean, you've seen some of these other countries that don't have the privilege that we do, that are living on the edge normally.
Right.
We talked a little bit earlier about, how we're both empathizing for them, in this kind of a
Right.
situation.
And just knowing how much of a life change, like how many things that we had to change to make our home safer for our kids and for ourselves and whatnot, to know the challenges that kind of, like, just, having clean water and how that affects your ability to have clean hands and clean, and not spread infection is something that I have become really, really grateful for, because I have been to countries where they don't have access to clean water. And so it's I can't imagine how challenging or how much more fear people in other spaces who are in vulnerable situations, how much this is affecting them and their stories. So it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know, since this whole thing has started, you've had a chance to, even more than what I think you have in the past, read some of your books to children online and, all this kind of stuff. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about how you feel it's important to do that right now.
Well, I think because school was one of the very first things that governments began to shut down or close, statewide, schools closed really quickly. Our children and how they were going to be affected by this storyline, how they were going to be affected by it, became our focus. And I just saw so many authors who write children's books in the mainstream world start to offer resources online and start to read their books to people, give permission for teachers and school administrators and people who work with children every day, permission to read their books and their works online, or from a digital standpoint. And so I kind of just thought, is there a space or is there a place for me to be a part of this? Considering the books that I write and how they are about God. And so I started a Sunday story time where I read one of my books every Sunday. And it's been really fun. Like it's not like I don't do live Facebook stuff all the time. This is not my thing. That's not my gift. It's not like even something that's all that comfortable to me at times, but I have found a lot of joy in being able to serve people in a way that that despite my not being all that comfortable with, I can do this and I can offer something for people to maybe find a little hope, especially with churches being canceled and no Sunday schools, and they're looking for some sort of just a little light on Sunday morning to kind of keep them focused and, give them a little bit of hope to start the week. And so for the fact that my books might be able to be a part of that is crazy and awesome, and I'm grateful. But but I'm not surprised, because one of the biggest things that I've learned about children's books, especially picture books, is all the places they end up, where they end up, people who find them, how they affect people's stories. Like I have story after story or email after email from people who have read my books during moments of their life that I never would have encountered, I never would have expected. Like I had a friend of mine who wrote and told me that she was, that she just finished going through her first 40 days of chemotherapy. And she was really mad at God during that time and did not pick up the Bible one time. The only thing that she did was every night. She doesn't have kids. This was not something that, like, it doesn't make sense for her to have even had my book on her bookshelf. But she picked up When God Made You, and that was the book she read to herself every single day after her chemotherapy.
Wow.
And I'm like, Brian, I didn't write that book with that kind of scenario, that kind of story in mind. And so for it to have that kind of impact, I've had people say they've read that book in, while standing in the aisle at Target, and literally had to sit down and because they were crying. I don't get that, because these aren't kids. So, but I find a lot of how God uses picture books to bring joy and laughter and good conversations and hope, and messages that we want our kids to know, how God uses the little books with pictures to do that is something that I have just been blown away by. And so I know, for me, if my books if I and my books could do something to bring a little light during this time of uncertainty, I am grateful for that opportunity. So,
well, clearly, and even before this whole health crisis that we've been going through, your books are just loved by so many folks. So, I'm not surprised that it's even more of an impact now.
Yeah, well, it is. I have never in my I knew that I had written a good idea 5 years ago when I wrote God Made Light. I really believed that idea was good. And I believed that if given the chance, that maybe there could be a space that I could fill in this world of picture books in the Christian world. But it was the competition, and there was a lot stacked against it. And I got 11 no's before I finally got a yes. And so I knew that I knew that there was something there. I didn't realize to what degree that it would happen and how much people would read my books. And I'm really, it's been cool. And having spent so many years writing adult nonfiction and having hardly, I can sometimes just kind of tear up thinking about how few people read my books before then. And when you think about all the time you invested and, whatever, it's really a joy to kind of sit back and just be able to write this content, and to bring life and love and affirmation into a family story that is what a gift, and I am grateful every day. So it blows my mind still. I mean, I hoped that it would be a situation that people would connect to, but I had no idea to what extent people would.
So Matthew, let's talk about reading to children, and kind of the importance of that at this point in our lives.
Well, I mean, I think reading to our kids is always important because, I mean, when you are with your child and you've got your book, not only are you gifting them with words and sparking things for their imagination, and just you're creating a really intimate time with you and your kid. And I think that for me, some of the best conversations that I've ever had with my kids have happened with a book in my hand. Regardless of whether it's a book that is hilarious, like the book with no pictures that I've read over and over and over again, and my kids just thought it was so hysterical. Or it was, a classic like Where the Wild Things Are, and you're just having these moments where the kids know exactly what the book is going to do. They know exactly what I'm going to say, but they still are like right there, so present. Or it's a book about somebody, about a topic like bullying or worrying or, being bored or whatever. Like those are the things that books have given, reading times and picture books have given me so many opportunities to have really good conversations, and conversations that I didn't plan. I didn't schedule them. I just picked up a book and we started talking, and it gave me an opportunity because they asked the question and I was able to talk to them about something that was important. And so now I think that that's even more important because like there are so many things that our kids are feeling, and I think that it might be that books give us or give parents the opportunity to see those feelings get talked about, to hear where they're coming from, to hear what their thoughts are during this time of uncertainty, and I think you have to be, all of this is depending on age, make it age appropriate, make sure that you're not forcing conversations that your kids don't really want to have. But a picture book sort of just allows us to not only distract ourselves from what's happening, it sometimes gives way and creates a really beautiful moment where we can kind of discuss and find out and dig into and show love to our kids in a way that they need, that we didn't know they needed. So
I think that's the really important thing right there, given these times.
Yeah.
I mean, because kids, regardless of their age, are sensing the anxiety. They're sensing the huge amount of change that their world and everyone else's world is going through. Right. So having the stability, the love, the time together, the distraction away from anything else for a while, I think it's got to be even more meaningful and important now than usually.
And I think that if they can see us being able to talk about it, even when it's not a thing that's a good thing, but seeing us be able to discuss it, to say it out loud, takes away their fear. Like I know that when the things that I'm not willing to talk about scare my kids way more than the things that I'm willing to say out loud. So
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Kids are awfully perceptive, I don't think
totally.
Adults give them credit enough.
My therapist always reminds me that that they know way more than I think they do. So,
well, Matthew, I really want to say thank you for spending some time with us. Your books are so enjoyed by so many. And, I know that, as we said, it's more important than ever for them to enjoy them. And I just really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with all of our audience on this.
Well, I'm grateful to be a part of it. So thank you so much, Brian.
All right. Thanks, everyone.